Hello and welcome to the Exclamation Mark podcast, episode 19, A New Hope. I am Crofton Steers, one of your two gaming guides on this journey of discovery that we embark upon almost every week. With me is my buddy, compadre, the R2D2 to my C3PO, Beau Schwartz. Beau, welcome to the show.
Hello, Crofton. Thank you for giving me the role of R2D2. I appreciate that greatly. He is definitely the cooler of the two, that's probably a reflection of our relationship as well. However, you speak many languages and perform heroics in your own goofy kind of way.
And everything is all your fault.
Is it? I guess so. It looks like it's my fault until things sort of turn out for the better. That's kind of how R2D2 rolls. He's on a different wavelength.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So how goes it? How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm not sick anymore, and we're actually doing a show, so I'm very excited about that. Feeling great.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good point there. Apologies for those of you who are weekly listeners. We've missed a little bit of a time. Partly that had to do imploded. And I'm back on my feet now, and hopefully better than ever. But I had quite the tech problem with my wireless adapter, leading to me needing an external wireless adapter because it failed, which caught on fire and damaged the motherboard and yada yada yada. You know, normal computer stuff. And so now I'm on a new laptop, and that's why you got this lower view of me. But I'm gonna get it all set up in the near future so that you will get, the full Crofton, if you will. That sounded dirty.
Yeah, just as you were saying that, we did actually have a lag spike. However, we got everything of what you said. So fingers crossed that was the only spike we're gonna get for the duration of the show.
I hope that's not on my end.
Well, we have to see. But, you're coming in loud and clear otherwise, and it was, it was a good lag spike. Oftentimes when you lag spike, we lose stuff, and we didn't lose anything. But yeah,
oh, God.
Crofton is also the C3PO of, computer ownership. Its parts are always falling off, and people are always having to put them back together. So also...
I get carried around by Wookiees. Yeah, no, I definitely, I've got the worst luck. So this time I'm buying two computers, two laptops, one heavy duty. This one is a little less heavy duty. And the idea being if one of them fails, I got to back up at all times.
Sweet. Well, sound like you're becoming a prepared podcaster. And
well, I'm a professional, Beau. I value professionalism above all else and video games.
Well, hopefully everyone agrees with me that we're glad that you're back and that we're back. And,
yeah, sweet.
Speaking of coming back, the Tokyo Game Show is also coming back this week. I don't know if you're excited for anything here, but I know that there should be some substantial Final Fantasy 15 news, and I find that kind of exciting.
I know Persona 5 is also a big one that's been bowing out of shows that that wasn't at E3, and people were like, oh, when's it going to be here? So, I mean, there's a couple of big Japanese-made games, but with Metal Gear Solid 5 out recently, I think that the heavy lifting's Final Fantasy 15 for Tokyo Game Show. And there may be Western games and other stuff as well. I don't know how that rolls, but it feels like we've been inundated with these shows lately.
Yeah, well, I think maybe we're just being a little more sensitive to it too, because now we're doing a gaming podcast. So every week I'm checking for news articles, and I'm like, "There's another show," because I'm like, I don't know if I feel like covering a show it's a game. There's gonna be so much news. I want to talk about irrelevant things,
and I want it to be dripped out throughout the year. Sometimes, like having these big dumps of news, or sometimes
the other issue for us too on the show, and you can write in and give us your feedback, because we're still trying to figure out how we do our news. So do we want to cover everything? Like, when you actually start looking at gaming news sites on a daily basis, you kind of get the sense that 80% of it is not news. It's just we want people to click on this stuff to sell advertising.
Clickbait, Beau.
Well, it's not clickbait. Clickbait's something different. You're getting baited into clicking it. It's more just that, hey, Fallout 4, which we've already announced and talked about, well, there's going to be an extra button in the menu screen, so let's write an article about it. You know, like, it's just content for content's sake, and it's
I would argue some of that is clickbait. Like
sure.
sometimes,
I'm not
like
saying it. I just clickbait is very specific. It's like, you know, liberals. The headline is going to say like, top 10 reasons you might have cancer. So check from under your bed. You know, and it's like, how do you get cancer from under your bed? And you click it because your brain is just like, what?
but I
And
see
you
a
want
lot of
to,
these top 25 games of the Xbox 360 now. You know, like top. You know, there's a lot of stuff like that as well filling the sites. And you know, I click on it. I'm interested in seeing what people's opinions are about those type of things. But like, yeah, I know what you're saying. A lot of that stuff is
my content
crazy.
for content's sake. That's what I think. So I'm
Well, we have a lot of content to go through this week, so let's move on to our own news section filled with 100% no clickbait.
readme.txt.
That head bopping sound of the modem. All right, so the first thing we'll cover is I think the biggest event of the last week was the Apple announcement event. They do these like maybe a couple of times a year. So they had their big one that draws the attention of the world
But this
this
is the
past week.
big annual event one, right?
Is it annual? I feel like they have one for
They have
iPhones and
them
one for
more than once a
iPads
year,
and
but I thought there was one big one where Steve Jobs used to get up and do the speech, and now it's Tim Cook. I just forget
yeah,
what it's like. Google has Google I/O. What's the Apple one? Apple
I don't know.
Byte meeting.
But they have normally the fall one is that one where they announce the new iPhones.
Yeah,
That
yeah. I thought
every
that this was what that was. Like it was
it was like I mean they did announce some stuff like new iPhone, but they also announced a new iPad, large-sized iPad, um, which is a little bit different. It's going to weigh about the same as the original iPad, so fairly heavy, but it's going to be quite a bit bigger. And I saw that because thinking about from a gaming point of view, you're like, wow, more real estate for games. Oh, it'd be fairly luxurious to play something like even Hearthstone on that or whatever. But it's clearly being marketed for businesses. Like you have these big pads of which to work on or to bring to meetings or whatever. So it wasn't on my must buy list. The thing that I was most anticipating did actually happen, which was that Apple TV got relaunched, or there's a new version of Apple TV, and it now features an app store and games and stuff. And I I thought they were going to come out big and they were going to have like a controller and all this sort of stuff, but instead it was really like a soft launch, if anything. Like they really didn't stress the games too much. I'm still confused about how you're going to be interacting with them.
Well,
So
yeah, I guess if they're announcing games, and I didn't watch any of the announcements, I just sort of got it in bits and pieces. In fact, I'll probably learn the most I'll learn about it from you today. But my sense is that the Apple TV has a specific design goal, and that's for their iTunes TVs and film, and that's what the box is intended. And so I don't think I don't think it's like we're releasing a new console for people or something akin to Steambox, which if you think about the way Steam works, we're like, oh, it makes sense that they do a console. They have a huge library. A lot of their games are console friendly, play with controllers. So, and then you look at Apple and you're like, oh, you're asking people to buy a box that you put on your TV stand. And, why not do what they're doing? You have a giant library of mobile games. So why not just transfer whatever you can onto the TV? Makes sense. I think they're putting it here and they're kind of going to see what's going to happen with it. And if they start making money hand over fist, I'd be willing to bet they allocate more resources into making that more robust. So I feel like
they should know that that's going to happen already. Like this is the thing that's frustrating.
I'm a gamer. I listen to that and I'm like, okay, nice for anyone. Even if I owned an Apple TV, I would not plan to use it until I had a reason to.
But like if you go anywhere and you look at how people are playing games now, especially kids and stuff, a lot of them are playing, on the iPads, iPhones, and all that sort of stuff. And for parents who are looking for like a quick fix, you have now a device that's connected to your TV. And Apple has a history of sort of stumbling into video games because if you look at the App Store, the top games, both like free to plays and the top apps, free to plays and purchases, are almost all video games. I guarantee you, when Steve Jobs and co were coming up with the iPhone and the iPad, they weren't thinking these are going to be like massive game devices, but really games are what people buy on them. And that's what's going to happen with the Apple TV too. And they had a chance to get ahead of that and release like an Apple branded controller and all that sort of stuff. They didn't have to make it so complicated, but now it's launching. It's going to have some compatibility with some games or whatever. It's controller based, from what I understand. It's going to have Disney Infinity. It's going to have Skylanders and some of these major brands, that kids brands and stuff like that. I think that there was an opportunity there to be a major player, and they I don't know why they've done it like this. Like they've just sort of it's like, oh, it also plays games. They spent tons of time talking about how it now has Siri and you can press a button and talk to it and say play this movie. Who gives a shit about that? It plays video games. I mean, like there's if they had come in a little more strategically, I think they could have made a big splash. Especially could have hurt Nintendo, in terms of having a game platform for
But
kids and stuff.
do you think that's why they wouldn't position it that way? Because if they market it in such a way as to say like Apple TV now also, a competitor for your gaming console, and we know people buy more than one gaming console, but gamers do, families don't. Like the type of people who might buy Apple, someone who owns an Xbox can watch TV on Netflix, is all that stuff is on there.
Right.
What benefit does Apple TV give you? The people that I've bought Apple TV as gifts, for individuals who don't have Xboxes or PlayStations, back when it was a big deal to have a console to watch things like Netflix, it's much easier for them to use. And it's also, I think you can listen to podcasts and there's radio stations, there's a YouTube app on there. Like there's a lot of really great stuff that you also have on consoles that you get on Apple. And for me, it was always, well, this is much easier for a non-gamer to use. So I think they're trying not to alienate people by saying like, hey, it's a console, because I think a lot of people, there are a market of people out there who are really into movies and television who don't care that
But
much about gaming.
I think they could have had their cake and eaten it too, is what I'm saying. They could have like released one that was like $40 more expensive. Say it comes with an Apple certified controller, because the big thing is the old Apple TVs, they had apps on them, but you could not get any others. Like they had like quite a few, but you couldn't upgrade them in any way, shape, or form. And now the new one has an Apple App Store, and they should know from experience that's going to be taken over by games. And I just feel that there's like there was an opportunity there to say like, also, light family friendly gaming, you want some in your home, instead of shelling out like $200-300 for the latest Nintendo. I agree with you what you're saying about Sony and Microsoft. They're playing in a different field, but I feel like they could have really sold it as like the system of the family. It's cheap, easy to use. A lot of parents don't give a shit how fancy graphics their kids' games are. So
Yeah, no,
and
I clearly people don't. They don't give a crap about graphics. They bought the Wii. The first time I played with the Wii, I didn't realize it wasn't like it was it like 720p. Like it wasn't even that.
it's 480p.
I was like, I had like a big flat screen TV, and I was like, what is this garbage? Why? But it's the Wii originally sold really well, so
It
not
was at that
everything.
transition
Yeah.
period too, between the
Yeah.
eight, like there was
No, I
early
know, I
HD
know. Yeah.
adopters like us, but there was a lot of people that didn't have HD TVs when the Wii first hit the stores.
Right. Well, Apple TV, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Anyway,
nice little device. I don't want to be sort of being too critical about it, because I think it's a great product for the right type of individual.
I just think there was an opportunity there for them to break huge into gaming because I think Apple's a super powerful brand and they've just sort of like and I see they've just sort of sidestepped into it and I can see it again like a bunch of gaming apps flooding their store, them starting to regulate it, and maybe eventually coming out with like a controller or something. But it feels like they haven't given it much thought. Anyway, I just wanted to rant a bit about that.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't want it to take up too much time.
well, as always, we take a news article and discuss it
But
for a long
the
time.
Apple event is the biggest thing this week.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I don't mind ranting on it too long.
I think you knocked your volume on your mic, and you need to turn it back to where it was.
I didn't touch it.
You went real quiet there.
It's the same. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all right. It dropped suddenly, so I thought I'd let you know. The volume button on the back of your mic.
Yeah, that's for the headset, the volumes.
Oh.
This is the gain on the other side.
You don't have a...
No, I didn't hit anything.
No, why did you go quiet all of a sudden? That's weird.
I don't know. Am I back?
Yeah, you're here. It's just your volume went down, and I noticed it.
Is it back?
No.
Does this do anything?
Yeah, maybe you moved. Did you move away from your microphone?
Now I hear myself. Is this better?
It is better, but back away a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I don't know. You should be hearing yourself. It's a good way to monitor your volume, but
no, I don't want to because it's an echo right afterwards.
all right. I'm gonna just cut there so I know that I need to cut the show at one point.
Can you cut the? Why am I echoing?
I don't know.
It's not on your end.
No. All when you record things, you have a way to monitor your own volume so you can hear yourself.
No, it's ever since I touched this dial, now I hear myself. It's very distracting because it's like a second later. Testing. Damn it.
You're sounding okay on my end now. We can.
Yeah, but I can't do a podcast like. Oh wait, it stopped. Is it? Do I still sound good?
You sound fine. You sound perfect right now. Just
perfect.
Keep whatever
Good.
it is. Keep that. Do not move a muscle. All right.
Right. I never touched it to begin with, so I don't get
it. I saw your hand. You were talking and your hand flew. That's why I thought maybe you knocked something and the volume went down. That's
all right.
I thought there was a correlation. All right. So move on to the next item.
All right, next item here is a trailer for one of Beau's favorite. Beau, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void gets a cinematic trailer and the reveal for the street date, which I believe is November 10th, 2015. That's off of memory. I actually didn't write it down. So I'm pretty sure it's November 10th. But go to YouTube, go to the StarCraft user account, watch the trailer. Even if you don't play Blizzard games, you know their trailers kind of rock. And this one didn't disappoint. It featured units instead of characters, although I think there's a one-eyed Protoss in there who may be a character in the show. There is always a character in the new StarCraft trailers, like Kerrigan was in one and Tychus Findlay was in the other one. So, but this one-eyed guy, maybe somebody knows who he is, but I don't. It's awesome. It's just fantastic. And
I think I must have watched the wrong trailer. The one I watched was like a cinematic trailer with all the like Rayner was in it and Kerrigan was in it. And
yeah, then you watched the wrong one. It's the cinematic trailer for Legacy of the Void. And,
yeah, that's what I watched.
So it features. It's basically the setup is the Protoss are retaking their home world. It's a small group of Protoss standing off against the hordes of Zerg, while they put down a I can't remember what it is called, but they warp in units, right? So they go to warp in a pylon, and it's so amazing that a Protoss pylon is in the cinematic trailer. You must build additional pylons. There's the iconic sort of error message from StarCraft. So there's a there's a gigantic pylon that comes to save the day in that trailer. It's amazing. You get to see two High Templars merge into an Archon and kill it's a Mutalisk, right? The big guys, yeah. amazing trailer, and Starcraft, the last chapter of Starcraft 2 is coming out. I couldn't be more excited. So that's the news, and then I just wanted to gush over it for all of 2 minutes. Seriously, one of the better cinematics, just because it's so full of action and awesome, Protoss stuff.
I'll let you have this moment, Beau.
This
I'm not
moment.
going to say anything because I was underwhelmed a little bit, but
Well, you saw the wrong
was,
trailer.
well, maybe,
There's no
maybe.
Raynor in this trailer. If you saw Raynor, it's not the right one.
Did I? It finished. It was a Legacy of the Void cinematic trailer.
There's two trailers. There's one where they did a teaser with in-game stuff, and they released the cinematic, like the CGI trailer. So
maybe I saw
it was
the wrong
yesterday,
one.
I believe, that it got released.
All right. I will defer to you on this. You saw, and honestly, you're a huge StarCraft fan, so if you think it looks awesome, I guarantee it does look awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's
Uh,
pretty amazeballs. It's got banelings in it. It's got everything. All right. Next up,
I'm looking at the news list here. You can go back to this. I'm skipping ahead, and you can go to the YouTube stuff after. I just saw The Witcher 3 here, and I'm such a huge fan of The Witcher 3.
yeah.
It says here Witcher 3 cost 81 million US dollars to make and profited about 61 million in sales. Do you mean it sold you mean it's running right now it's losing money?
No, profit. Like above and beyond. It
Oh,
recouped its
oh,
costs and its profit. I really paraphrased this article. I didn't even include the link, but I believe it was on GameSpot.
okay.
And the news article was just reporting that, want to know how much Witcher 3 costs to make? And I was like, oh, Crofton might like that. He really likes that game. I haven't
I
played it
do
yet.
like that.
So it was 81 million. And that's a lot of millions, guys, for a single video game. I don't know where it stands. I don't know if it's I doubt it's the most expensive game.
No,
ever
it's not.
made, but...
The first Shenmue game cost something like 200 million at the
All
time.
right, well, Shenmue hipsterdom aside.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money. Here's the thing though, is like CD Projekt Red treats customers, right? Remember we would get these remember I did the unboxing where I was opening all the stuff that's inside each game, like you get the soundtrack and color maps and manuals.
Yeah.
So they definitely didn't cheap out on any of the extra stuff. I think they put a fair amount of advertising monies behind it, and like the game itself, if you play it, and especially it's made with a smaller team than a lot of games like Elder Scrolls games, you were like, man, this must have cost a shit ton of money to make. Like really, the voice acting alone and a lot of that stuff, I'm sure it cost a fortune. So, but I got scared because I knew it. I had heard it had been financially successful, but I got scared when I saw this because I thought that it was operating at a loss, and I want developers to look at The Witcher 3 as an example of what to do, both in terms of game design and how to treat customers, the free DLC and all that stuff, and not an example of like, oh, we're not going to do it like that because we're going to lose money, right? So I'm glad it made money.
All right, well, yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting also because they do AAA games, but CD Projekt Red is also not a titan of the game industry like Activision or EA or something like that. I mean, they're very important and they have a lot of money now, or maybe they have for a while, but they sort of sit in that fine spot where they have kind of an indie credibility. Like, they're not an indie, but they have credibility, where a lot of big developers, even though they make great games, catch a lot of slack for being being the man of the gaming industry, basically.
Yeah, they're not the man yet.
Nope. All right, and so this next article I thought it was interesting. So YouTuber reportedly requests $22,000 for coverage of a game. This was an article, I believe I saw it in PC Gamer, and it caught my interest just because Let's Plays and live streams are so big, and there are a few people out there, or maybe more than a few, who have millions of followers who are tastemakers. Basically, they're almost like a new aristocracy. for the gaming culture on I endorse this game, and then people are like, oh, this guy endorses this game, and then millions of people purchase said game.
I remember PlanetSide 2. Remember they had the deal with like Total Biscuit or something? He came in and would do all these features on it.
Right, they had popular YouTubers from each of the factions like do this media related event, which is good. Like, I think the thing about this one is that, you know, when you're going to release a game, traditionally what you'd do is you'd go to GameSpot or whoever and give them early release and say, right, here's whatever to write an article to generate buzz. YouTubers are not they're just dudes that a lot of people follow, right? They got, like, you know, PewDiePie is just PewDiePie. I mean, he's probably incorporated by now, but he's still basically, it's him. So if this guy comes online and says, man, this indie game is awesome, I give it, you know, 5 out of 5 PewDiePies. People, or I don't know, apple pies. I give it 3 peach pies, peach cobblers, and 2 blueberry walnut dwarfs. I don't know what pies are called. You know, that could generate revenue. So that has value. So I think a lot of these guys are getting inundated now with, hey, check out my new game, check out my new game. And in this article, it was an indie developer who was, you know, maybe developing this on a very small budget, just, you know, throwing out unsolicited ads to YouTube or say, hey, I've got a game, here's a free game code. We'd love it if you'd play it on your site. And then the response they got back was, yeah, we'll do it. It's $22,000 for 3 good talking points, and it'll be more for 3 good talking points and a link in the description. And a few things came up. There was a few Reddit posts that I read on it, and one thing that came up was, you know, first of all, if a Let's Play doesn't disclaim that it's paid, it's probably in violation of FCC rules. And here in Canada, I'm sure there's something similar with the CRTC. Like, paid product placement has, you know, I think has to be acknowledged on some level.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so, but a lot of these people are not companies with lawyers. They're just dudes who are like, man, I need to make some money. Why not ask them for money? But that also, this was an indie developer reporting it on YouTube, which the reason why he posted it on Reddit was to say, is there anyone out here who's paying this? Is this a thing now? Do the big developers pay? You know, and if so, there's nothing out there in the public right now sort of proving this. I imagine gamers would be really upset with someone like PewDiePie if they found out EA gave him $1 million to play a game that he didn't want to play, but he cashed out. I think there's a credibility issue, and then there's a legal issue. You know, so there's this new sort of brand of ethics, or it's not new, but it's new in terms of YouTube live streamers, and it might be a thing. So I think we all need to be a little more vigilant about who we're watching on YouTube, and even us. Maybe we were paid to say that StarCraft 2 is a really awesome game, even though we haven't played.
If somebody wants to pay me $22,000 to pimp their game, do it.
But the thing is, you can do it. We would have to disclose that we did it, and then gamers would be like, "You're a shill, Gamergate, man."
I'm a shill.
Then,
just give me the money. I like Duke Nukem forever.
So let's start a new podcast called the Shillcast, and we'll just talk. We'll just say anything is good if you give us money to say it's good, and that'll be the show. I think we got something there. Anyways,
yeah, right.
Shillcast.
I definitely can see where the conflict would lie, especially with there's a lot of impressionable young folks that watch the streams or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't more or less, like, so because of that, this is less something that I see affecting me, but I could see it affecting young people for sure.
Yeah, you know, your future children might. So something to be mindful of. It's a wild west out there. It's not like TV where they have to tell you something's advertised or run the risk of being fined millions of dollars. Even then, there's problems in television land too, I'm sure. All right, so I think that covers it for the news. Now we're gonna move on to something a little different. Crofton, you want to tee me up?
Yes, we are going to talk about the games we play.
You're always talking about making kids' minds like vegetables. Talk about them out on the street smoking pot.
This is Games Per Minute.
How do you feel about cutting his head off?
See that, Beau? I'm trying to be smarter about not saying the exact name because I know what's going to be said in the bumper.
Right. And it's funny because I've gotten used to you saying the name in the bumper, so I'm like, when's my cue is you saying the name now? In my mind, I gave up. So you're just trying to mess with me. As soon as
I beat you.
As soon as you get me used to one thing, we're gonna change it up again. All right, Crofton, what have you been playing this past week or two?
Okay, so first off, I mentioned my computer's dead, and that was sort of like a mixed blessing in regards to it took away the Rocket League distraction. I haven't played Rocket League since pretty much we last recorded, I still love it, obviously, and as soon as I have a computer that can run it, I will be all over Rocket League. But I went a full scale on Batman Arkham Knight, which I had been playing, and I've now, as of last night, somewhat finished the game. And yeah, so I have like more fully formed impressions of Batman Arkham Knight. Do you want me to go into full on rant mode here, Beau?
Okay, let's do it.
Well, all right. Well, we can. It's I just want to clarify a couple of things I said last episode. I was disappointed by a lot last episode, and I think this is the deal when your expectations are really high for something, and this was the game I was most anticipating this year. They have nowhere to go except down, and Batman Arkham Knight makes a pretty bad first impression, I think, when you start playing it. The they're heavy on the Batmobile almost immediately, which is the weakest part of the game, and then they throw you into perhaps the shittiest area of the game fairly quick as well. So I was kind of feeling down on it early on, and I think that came through in the previous episode. If I was reviewing it, and we don't do reviews on the show, if I was reviewing it now, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10, which is a good score, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it ends up being pretty good for sure. And the story is much more impressive than I had originally thought at the beginning. There's a couple of twists. It is really difficult to talk about. Like, you want to do a spoiler filled version of the discussion of the plot, because there's two key elements. One that happens fairly early on, but it's still, I feel like I would be doing a disservice to anyone who intends to play the game by revealing either of the two things. But I found that the game was really well put together, pretty interestingly plotted, and really quite fun to play. The two things I would hold against it are the Batmobile was while it got better as you get all those unlocks, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you get unlocks for. You remember in Arkham Asylum how I don't even understand what the story reason was why Batman didn't have any of his gadgets, but by the end you have all the gadgets
In Arkham City.
in Arkham Asylum. The very
you
first
get
one.
captured, I think, and don't you get captured? So that's why you have to cover them all. Like,
No, I don't know, but like you walk into the asylum and you have his belt. Like I don't
Oh.
understand where he loses all his shit.
I forget. It's been too long.
But in Arkham City, they start you with a bunch of shit, and in Arkham Knight, you start with even more crap. That's not to say you don't get more devices, but you start with a lot of stuff. But the Batmobile starts with almost nothing. Like it's much different in terms of weaponry and stuff at the end of the game than it is at the beginning, and therefore much more fun to use. At the beginning, it's kind of like it's bare bones, and it seems out of place in a Batman game. I'll be honest, and it continues to be out of place throughout the game, and I kind of wish it wasn't there. Batmobile aside, like it still had its moments. It still had some fun moments in the Batmobile, and like it wasn't a total crap show. But the other thing that kind of the other part that kind of sucked for me was so there was the Batmobile, and there was, geez, I lost my train of thought here. It was one other thing, because overall the game is so high quality. Like the graphics are nice. I would say the art direction is not as nice as the previous Arkham games. So maybe on par with Arkham Origins, maybe a little better. The technical graphics are really nice. All in all, it's a really impressive technical game. Artistically, it's not as impressive as the previous Batman games, and it doesn't nail that comic book aesthetic as well. Although Gotham, as it opens up, you get more and more. It gets more and more that gothic feel as you go on. But yeah, I just felt that. The other thing, going back to what I was going to say earlier, aside from the Batmobile, is that there was a lot of Me Too stuff, like a lot of samey repeat cut and paste things. I'll give you an example. uh, you would do something like, say, chase down a supervillain in your car. Often it was in the car. And then you would have to do it 3 more times. You'd save a firefighter, and then you got to save 10 more firefighters. You defuse a bomb, then you got to defuse 10 more bombs. It's like the quintessential sort of video game trope. Do it once, do it twice, do it 3 times, do it 4 times, do it 5 times. And it got tiresome. Like, I really felt that doing the same tasks over and over, even the most fun things would kind of lose their flavor. And all the side quests are kind of set up that way, except for a few that are kind of one and done side quests, and there weren't that many of those, but they were the best ones. And I feel like if Batman Arkham Knight had less fluff, like, it has a zillion Riddler challenges, it has a zillion extra dudes you got to fight. If it was a little more tight on the extra content, I would have left with a more positive experience overall. But in the end, it sort of redeems itself at the end, where the storyline kind of hits a crescendo. You're excited to discover some of the big mysteries of the game. And because the game is so long, I would say it's almost twice as long as Arkham City, although I could be wrong. Um, you get a lot of that great Batman goodness from previous games. So I had fun with it overall, but I would say 8.5 is fair, especially coming from a game like The Witcher 3, which I felt was a stronger game overall. It's still a really good game. I would totally recommend it, especially for fans of the Arkham series.
All right, well, I'm definitely gonna have to give that a go at some point in the future. But I think that your opinion is probably, I trust your opinion on the Batman games. I didn't even think I'd play the first one, and the first one I know I played because of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just felt that, just to close it, I felt I was hard on Batman last week. I feel like it's better. It's totally worth the play. It's very technically impressive. And I feel like if this game, came out years ago, we'd be calling it one of the best games of all time. But like, now there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of amazing games out there right now, and it's tough. But it's still 8.5, and again, it's probably a must own at one point for your, like, when it comes out on PC for you, Beau. Like,
Well,
you wait
it
till
is
it gets
on
cheaper or
PC, but
something.
yeah, I'm probably. I don't have a good track record when it comes to action adventure games. I play them when the mood strikes me. I can't, always play them on release.
Yeah, well, that's cool. You might get a better deal that way.
Yep, or I might have a friend who buys it for me full price and then I not play it. Sorry, Crofton. But
You son of a
I have
bitch.
played Arkham City though. I was super grateful. It was actually a really good gaming experience.
It is, and see, that's when I give it Arkham Knight 8.5. It's with the idea that Arkham City to me is a 9.5.
Right.
So if that's a 9.5, where do I go from there? I consider Arkham Asylum to be like Arkham Origins, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight are the same similar types of games. I consider Arkham Asylum to be a different type of game, even though it uses much of the same mechanics. It's more like a Metroidvania, and in a tight location. So I feel weird comparing it to the others, but I would probably give it 9 out of 10. So Arkham City being the best one.
Oh wow. So I've played the best one already. I feel bad about it now. It's all downhill from here.
That's my opinion. A lot of reviewers are saying Arkham Knight is the best one, and I can see why they would say that, but
I think Arkham Knight had the unfortunate, and this is what I've heard, but had the unfortunate timing of being released near Rocket League. And I've heard other people say that, like, the driving in Rocket League is arcadey and amazing, and it's not so good in Arkham Knight.
I said that because I was last week. I said we were doing the some of the Riddler challenges, and the Riddler is like, I could go on about him. I'm not going to, but like, really, the suspension of belief is right out the window with how he could design these ridiculous challenges, and a lot of them are now these either racetracks for the Batmobile through these like death courses, or they're actual platforming puzzle solving with the Batmobile. Anyway, I wanted to shoot my brains out doing those things. They were the worst.
Yeah. Well, Rocksteady, if you're listening, get your puzzle making crap together and make them more first of all, believable, and stop using the car to do them.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to be next for both Rocksteady and the Batman franchise. I know somebody's going to do another Batman. I don't think it's going to be Rocksteady. Um, and it's probably, it may even be like a reboot of the franchise or a different thing. But I have to say the whole Arkham universe, like I'm a big Batman fan, and I would say the whole Arkham universe provides like one of the best versions of Batman and his rogues gallery that I can think of. And the story allows them to, because they know it's ending, they're able to do things that comic books can't do, because comic books they release a new one every month. So characters, if they die, they're coming back or whatever, but it's not like that necessarily in video games when there's a finite amount, right? So
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting take. I think you and a lot of people agree on this. For my games per minute, I don't have much to report. I've been playing Heroes of the Storm, Rocket League. I played some new Hearthstone cards. I haven't been playing that much Hearthstone though, and a whole lot of Diablo. The new patch.
still,
The new patch is really fun. I've also got a group of people that I'm running content with, which makes it also more. Playing with other people is more fun too. So I've gotten to the highest Torment level, Torment 10. I'm not playing on hardcore this year though, and I think that's why I've had progress so quickly. And yeah, it's just we have
hardcore, you die right away. It's permadeath,
yeah,
right?
it's permadeath.
So just how like on these high levels of torment and stuff like that, how often are you dying?
It depends. Like you see, the way the game kind of works is if you turn the torment level up too high and you can't handle it, you're dying like every 2 seconds.
Right.
Like you're just getting pwned. And even on hardcore, the way that you kind of die is you crank up difficulty levels, and you're managing it, and then you get bursted by something ridiculous, some RNG in terms of enemy power placement, or just a monster that you didn't think was going to hurt you as bad as it did, and then it did. So you die a lot, and then what happens is you're like, man, I'm dying like every 3 seconds. I res, I come back, I die. I guess we need to crank it down one. So you log out of the game, and you log back into a slightly less difficult version of the game. And
Because you're a pussy.
Well,
No,
I mean, you run
kidding.
it, you get better loot, and then you theory craft with all the cool loot you got, and then you crank up more and more. So, so one of the people I run with, John Jagger, the guy from Azeroth Roundtable, he has this monk build where he can. It's kind of funny because I like Joe. He can palm everybody. There's an ability on the monk called Exploding Palm.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that sounds useful.
So when he hits somebody with a palm and they die, then his palm spreads to other people, and then they can blow up and die. And anyways, he's got this giant combo of stuff where he's palming everybody and they're exploding, and it's really cool. And I know, I just love talking about it because I'm a dirty person and it's hilarious. But you can do all these cool combo things that you can't do in the normal game, and that's sort of where the end game gets really fun, is trying to figure out how to combo abilities in these crazy, ridiculous ways.
Combo.
Yeah.
Although that was one of my pet peeves of Diablo, was it I guess you couldn't really, the abilities didn't really interact with other players in the sense, you play a game like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or something, you can combine your powers to make a superpower or something like that. In Diablo, it's just that you do something to the monsters and somebody else can do something to the monsters, right?
Yeah, there's no meaningful mechanics that are interactive with other players besides rezzing them when they die. There's no body blocking. There's no friendly fire, which thank God, because there's so much spam. But
yeah.
But games like that offer unique challenges, and I think that's what's missing from the. Well, I don't know if it's missing from the Diablo experience. I think people who work on Diablo would say that's not what our objective is in making this game. But for a multiplayer game, it can be fun to spam things, but it definitely, there's not a lot of meaning in terms of what you're doing with other players. There's very little like when Rocket League, I'm like, go to the other side of the net, I'll shoot the ball to you. It's important that we do what we say, and we get our enjoyment from coordinating plays that are meaningful. And there's no okay, you tank and I'll go over here and hit this thing and whatever. But I think a lot of people would argue that raiding is where, you know, the Blizzard franchises focus on that kind of content, because in game is really just giant bosses that take 25 people to do and to coordinate in almost complex ways.
So when you're playing Torment or whatever, are you just playing, like, is it the same single player game that are you
It's
just
the
doing the
adventure
same
mode.
levels over and over and over?
Have you played adventure mode yet?
No.
So Diablo 3 famously, when it released, it just makes you finish the game 4 times over and gets increasingly more difficult. With
Yeah,
Reaper of Souls, what they said was, that's dumb. So what we're going to do is let you pick your own difficulty, and there's a slider. It's a very fancy slider that, you know, from normal all the way up to Torment 10 now, so there's like 15 difficulty levels.
Oh,
14.
I see. Yeah.
And so you can play the campaign on any difficulty level you choose, but Torment levels and higher are basically impossible to do without legendary gear, without really good legendary gear. And so it's also boring to run the same game over again. So there's adventure mode. And adventure mode has 2 things. There's bounties, which send you out into the game world to kill specific creatures, and they could be new. It's like kill Blarg on, you know, the caverns of whatever. And so you go to the caverns of whatever, and you hunt down Blarg and you kill him. So there's the bounty system.
He had it coming.
Yeah, Blarg had it coming. And then there's the rifts, which are like timed challenges where you get a lot of drops. Like the drop rate's pretty good. Tons of elite packs where you go in and just kill as much as you can, and that's all it is. And it's randomized, purely randomized levels and creatures. So that's sort of where you spend a lot of your time, is in adventure mode, because then you don't have to do story things anymore. You don't have to go through bosses or do places you've done 100 times over. It adds a bit more variety. I will say that there isn't enough variety in the different bounties that you can do. Like I've ran several series of bounties, and I already feel like I'm seeing repeats on missions and stuff like that, and that's not fun. So
Still, that's better than what I thought. Anyway,
yeah.
it sounds.
I think I've played it quite enough. I've got tons of gear. I'm at the point now where farming for gear is like, I'm not getting meaningful loot drops all the time. I'm getting the running joke is we keep getting these Beau janglers. There's a boots called Beau janglers, and they're legendaries. They're terrible. They don't do anything exciting or meaningful. So now everything that's bad is a Beau jangler, and so we get a lot of Beau janglers. But yeah, Diablo 3 is fun. That's what I've been playing, and that's the end of that. I'm done. I'm done with games I've been playing. And I think Crofton was tapping his headphones, and then the screen froze, and so on the webcam I just see him tapping his headphones, and there you go, he's disconnected, or his video's off. Well, all right, you're back. Hello.
I am back.
Yeah, you kind of just froze, like tapping your headphones. It looked like the final moments before you see someone die and they're frozen in that moment or something, like headphones not working. All right. So I've stopped the recording just because this is easy for me to edit if I can see the cut. So I just said that's all I have to say about Diablo, so we can just move on to the next section.
Alrighty. So we'll just do inventory management.
Yeah, let's do inventory management. Thanks for the pause, by the way. I needed to run away.
No problem. You'll be impressed at how long I was able to talk about Batman
I
straight.
knew you'd be able to handle it if I let you know. So, and I'm going to go back and listen to it because I wanted to hear. I feel bad, but at the same time, it was good timing for me.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to push the record thing. And do you want to say here is whatever? Or do you,
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, it looks like we got our game time in this week, which is good. I'm going to have to find something to replace Batman now that it's over. I think I might go back to The Witcher. We'll see. But before we do that, maybe we should move along to our next segment. We're going to skip again the dialogue tree this week. We're going to do a mega dialogue tree sometime. You guys will all be rewarded with a great conversation, but we've been going on about different topics, and maybe the dialogue tree just flows into what we're saying. Anyway, next section is called inventory management, and this is where we answer the question: spend your cash or vendor trash.
Inventory management is a challenging and inexact science.
All right. Well, I was going to say everything that you said before the bumper. You've changed it up on me again. I thought you were going to be vague, and then you completely described it.
I'm like a chameleon, Beau. You can't pin me down. I'm gonna just do my rec first.
Okay.
Because it's pretty straightforward. I only like to make recommendations to games when I'm done them. Now, Batman Arkham Knight, I said that I was near the end. I looked on the internet just to be like, because I was like, why are the end credits rolling? I was confused, but I guess I have to do a couple of mini missions to get the end credits to roll. But I'm right at the end. I've beaten the big bad and all that sort of stuff. So because of that, I feel like I've got a fully formed opinion of it, and I'm ready to recommend it. I've recommended other Batman Arkham games in the past, but today, my recommendation, Batman Arkham Knight for the PlayStation 4.
Oh. Why for the PlayStation 4?
Because that's the version I played. And
so you're not going to endorse the other consoles, even though you know they're just as good?
No, I don't. Like, isn't the whole deal that the PC version's so bad it got pulled?
They fixed it by now.
No, they haven't fixed it. It's still not on the Steam store. They released a patch, but
really?
it's not done yet. So, and the Xbox One version is probably the same. I don't know.
I forgot about that when I said my thing. You're right.
I made a point of saying PS4 because it's the only one I can guarantee is awesome. And there was zero glitches, zero problems. Really, it ran perfectly smoothly. So what
Crofton was saying before about being a shillmeister was like untrue.
It's untrue. Rocksteady, give me my money, Warner Brothers. Give me my money.
He didn't get any money for that. He just wants you to know that his word is trustworthy. All right, then I have something a little different this week. It is definitely gaming related. I know sometimes I stretch the boundaries of what a game recommendation entails with television shows, which are not games. But there's actually this great little website called Sarian.net. And anyone who's played old text adventures already knows what the word Sarian means. It's from the Space Quest 1, the Sarian Encounter title. So Sarian.net has to do with Sierra Online, the old graphic, what do they call them? Point-and-click adventures. And basically what it is, I'm not sure how they're able to do this and not get in trouble, but Sarian.net has several of the old games available for free to play in your browser. So it has King's Quest 1 through 3, it has the first Police Quest, and it's got Space Quest 1 and 2, it's got the Black Cauldron. And you can start playing at any point in the game. Like, it works really weird. So, like, I started off in Ulan's Flats. Ulan's Flats? Yeah. In Space Quest 1 when I played it. But you can start them from the beginning. They're faithful reproductions. I think if you want the actual game experience, you should go and find a copy of the original game and play that. But if you want a free way to kill time at your office, or just, I don't know, if you have something that you don't want to pay attention to, your significant other's arguing with you and you want to pretend you're listening, but then check out this site instead. This is a site you can go to and sort of enjoy those games. So I didn't know it existed till I found it on Reddit, and maybe you didn't know it existed, but this might just make your day for an afternoon. Sarian, SARIEN.net. There you will find those games, and they're a lot of fun. And also one of the cool things too is just like in those old games you had to type in what you needed to type in, but you can right click on the screen and it'll just give you a list of all the things you can type in, which is kind of cool. So you can kind of progress quicker than you would normally.
I actually found that website quite a long time ago. It's a good recommendation. I was looking for a way to play old Sierra games on my iPad, and you can through the Safari browser or whatever, and Sarian.net, which is pretty awesome. It's only the AGI games and not the SCI games, which are that's adventure game gobbledygook for the systems they used to make those games. So even the more advanced EGA graphics games and none of the VGA point and clicks are playable this way. It's only the oldest of the old, which were fun. I remember I tried Police Quest was one of my first video games ever. My parents didn't seem to realize that the white pixels in the trunk of a car were bags of cocaine and not
Nice.
bags of flour. So I definitely have fond memories of that game, and I tried playing, and I played it. I got far enough before the novelty ran out. I was on the iPad and I was like, oh yeah, this was really fun back in the day, but I've got better things to play now or whatever. But it's still like, I think it's neat to have that sort of reference. And there are other old adapters like Scum VM, which allows you to play old like Monkey Island games and this sort of thing on all sorts of things ranging from your Nintendo DS to like your iPad and that. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there for people who look to allow us to enjoy the adventure gaming goodness of our youth. So good rec, Beau.
Oh, yeah. I thank you. I thought, gamers would really appreciate this kind of thing. Although maybe young gamers would be like, oh, I don't want to play this old man crap.
What the fuck is all this pixels? This is crappy. Where's the 4K?
The one omission on here that I'm kind of sad about is the Mother Goose and her fairy tales. I played that a lot as a kid. It was a good
Dude, no joke. That was my first game ever. Mixed Up Mother Goose.
Yeah, Up Mother Goose.
And when I worked at a day camp, I had because they released a VGA version of it eventually. I had all the kids, like I was in charge of computer time, and I had all the young kids playing Mixed Up Mother Goose, and they all ate that shit up. It was amazing.
It was well done.
Yeah, so anyway, Mixed Up Mother Goose I have super fond memories of as well. Yeah, so if you have fond memories of a game, you want to hear us talk about it, you want to contribute to the conversation, send us an email to exmpodcast@gmail.com. Beau, is it possible that we have received an email?
We did, actually. So last week in our Twitch chat, people were writing stuff at us. And even today, there's people writing stuff at us. We're doing a show. We can't talk to you, but we appreciate you being here, and you guys can, grab a drink and talk to each other. But some people really wanted us to answer some questions, so I said email us. So, wait, is this the one? So a gentleman named Ben had a question for us.
Hi, Ben.
And so here it is. Very succinct. Your opinion, games of the East and the games of the West. O-O, as in like the dungeon crawlers, open world shooters, and MMOs, MMORPGs, RPGs, MOBs, and the communities. That's the email. Thank you, Ben, for your message. I'm not quite clear on what you're asking, so I sent him a reply, but I didn't get an answer back. I wanted to know if he meant Eastern games, as in I guess we're the West, like Western game development.
Yeah, we for
Eastern
sure
game development.
If he's talking Western, and let's talk about it like that, because that's an interesting thing we can talk about real briefly.
Sure.
Because the Tokyo Game Show, we led off the top with that's coming soon, and that focused on Eastern made games. And I remember I worked for Nintendo in sort of promotion for a little while way back when, and when I did that, all games or most games were made in the East. And if they weren't, they were made maybe in California or whatever. Canada didn't become the hub of gaming development that it is now. For instance, Montreal, even BioWare in Edmonton, all that sort of stuff. Like that happened later. And when I was a kid, like especially on the consoles, the most advanced games were always Japanese games. But as sort of things have evolved, it feels like now that it's more likely to be Western games. Like most of the games we talked about today are Western games. I think Blizzard, all those games are Western games, even though they're extremely popular in the East. So I would say I'm more of a Western game guy. Like I used to love Final Fantasy, but now I see a lot of them and I find them cringeworthy. And like Metal Gear Solid just came out. That was one that used to represent adult games for me. And I look at it now, and he famously designed the girl's desert outfit to be like a bikini or whatever. And I'm like, man, You just don't. That's sort of like immature shit that wouldn't happen in Western development, or is less likely to happen in Western development.
No, it
So,
happens in Western development. I think it's less blatant. I think the rationale is like less. It's just less like, yep, she's naked. That's what we like. Whatever. I think people have Western gamers and Western, if they're gonna make a hottie like that and make her naked, they're gonna provide a lot of justification and rationale for it in a lot of cases, but they still do it. I mean,
but like
we still do it.
Lollipop Chainsaw and Bayonetta and all that stuff, those are all Japanese games, right? Like that when
Well,
it's
I would say
really gratuitous,
they're
it's
not bashful.
Japanese.
They're not bashful about their, some might say, misogyny. Like they're,
I
they
would say that.
like watch anime. Like, and there's a lot of Eastern stuff that is. I mean, I feel like it's Japanese. I'm hard pressed to think of like maybe other cultures in Asia like have that in other countries, but like a lot of the Japanese stuff in particular, they're very much. Women are treated as objects. Like,
Well, I know there's a lot of like Korean MMOs. Like, what is the one starts with L?
Lineage.
Legacy, Lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lineage 2. I remember I was working at Ubisoft when Lineage 2 came out, and we gave it a test, and it was all
Well,
like,
what about the
be-
EverQuest 2 chick? Like, or EverQuest
bikinis and
1?
armors and stuff. It's true, but like there was something particularly egregious about the Lineage. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh, I mean,
For
forget that.
EverQuest, it was more like box art than it is like in-game
I
stuff.
was looking up articles today, and I saw there's a Dead or Alive 5 coming, and there's an article. It was an opinion piece just about. I think. Anita Sarkeesian was talking about it. Because it's free to play, but you can buy outfits. And Dead or Alive is a famous fighter game for its like it's like a boob simulator. Like
Yeah, you can control the bounciness of the boobs.
Right, and they're very like a lot of attention is paid to how they animate and to things of that nature. And they like in some cases I think they're charging like $100 for like bra and panty outfits. To do that in their game. There's no purpose to it. Now one might have a fighting uniform and it's revealing versus, well, you just have like, why don't they just be naked? Like it's very blatantly, designed for, their sexuality is very blatantly put on display. Whereas like that aesthetic still pervades in Western gaming, but it's less of the it's not, they're not, game companies are not like, we know you come here to play the games for the naked women. It's just part of the art.
And aside from I don't want to get too sidetracked on it. Back to the East versus West thing. I definitely feel that part of it has to do with the Japanese and Western Eastern games having less of a capacity to build these giant blockbuster AAAs. Like pretty much Final Fantasy 15 and Metal Gear Solid 5 have crippled their respective companies, like where they've taken pretty much all the resources imaginable, multiple years longer of development time than they think. They just don't. They're not able to pump them out in as efficiently a manner as is Western developers, and like. The Witcher 3 we talked about earlier, that's a little bit of a when we talk Western development, even though Poland would be considered Western development, it's definitely an outlier. And I think it's an example of a game company that streamlined its resources to develop this game in as efficient a manner as possible. And Ubisoft has it pretty much down at this point, and a lot of other game companies do. Yeah. But I just feel like Japan just can't keep up with that. So in terms of me, for big immersive experiences, I'm much more likely to get that out of a Western game, and therefore I'm more of a Western gamer right now. Whereas when I was in the Super Nintendo days, I was all about the East Coast, baby.
Yeah, it's weird because the way I feel about Western games is just that I find they're more imaginative. Where like think about Mario Brothers and how stupid that sounds. If you never heard of Mario Brothers and someone just described it to you, it's there's a plumber and he jumps on things and it's in this magical world where he's got to save a princess. It sounds dumb, but it's a work of imagination, and it's definitely Western games very often are rooted in. Even if they're fantasy, they're rooted in a sense of realism or a sense of this is like life. There are fantastical elements to it, but it's like life. Whereas, you know, think of The Last Guardian or like Ico. Those are games of imagination. They're not like life at all. Think of Zelda. Like you see humans in them, but like there are these crazy flights of fantasy that take place. Like the weird things that happen in Metal Gear games, right? Like that you hide in a cardboard box. Or I was reading an article today where taking a shower makes you more powerful. Like weird game mechanics that are cool, but they're just like they're not necessarily the most realistic. Where if you play like Mass Effect, it seems like no, it's the political debates and characters and everything's got to be rooted in a sense of authenticity that I feel like Japanese games don't feel they need to, or Japanese Eastern games are not. They're more bound to their internal truths rather than the truths of the actual universe.
And so I agree with 100% of what you said. I just think that and I'm glad they're both there and both provide those options. But if I had to pick one and I could never play one of the other genre again, like if I had to pick Western games or Eastern games, I would totally pick Western games.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just, I'm glad they're both there. But if we're having to put them up against each other, I'd rather be playing Mass Effect and Batman and The Last of Us rather than playing Mario and Metal Gear Solid, for instance. Like, that's just if I have to pick one of the two. Although I'm glad that I don't have to pick.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in agreement with you, but I'm very reluctant to say that because I think there are great, like right now they're just not holding our imagination, but there are great experiences I think to be had in the future that will come from Western developers.
Sweet. Thanks for the question, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
It was Ben, right?
Yeah, Ben.
Sweet. That's a good one. So yeah, you can write in with questions for us as well at exmpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website, exmpodcast.com. You can find all our shows there. I used to do a blog, but I have been slacking so bad it's becoming a running joke. At EXM Podcast on Twitter is where we do our tweets. You can also facebook.com/EXM Podcast and click that nice little like button. We'd like to see you subscribe to us as well. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher, EXM Podcast. And twitch.tv/EXM Podcast is where we live stream. We do that generally on Monday evenings, variable time, so keep an eye on the Twitter. And thank you to those who have been bearing with our rotating schedule. Also, we have another show. It's called Good, Bad, or Bullshit, where Beau and I get together with our pal Mike and review a random topic every week. It's not necessarily game related, but it's a pretty fun conversation. We think you'd like it, so check that out. Also, we are individuals. We have individual likes and dislikes. Beau, for instance, doesn't like homeless people. That's not true.
That's not true.
I think he likes homeless people. I don't like sushi, for instance. How would you figure that out? How would you figure that out? I know you could follow us individually on Twitter. Beau, how could the people follow you?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at Beau Schwartz.
And hear about his homeless hate. Hashtag homeless hate.
Come on, man. I don't need the homeless lobby after me.
And at Crofton Steers is my tweet handle. Hashtag sushi hate. And so with that, our show is almost concluded, except we have one last section. Beau, please play the music.
It's now time for Mastergame Theater.
All right, so this episode, we're going to do one from one of Beau and my favorite co-op games. Beau?
Borderlands 2. Probably one of the better games that I've played in my history of playing games. I really enjoyed that game and played it a lot. And I was thinking when we were doing Master Game Theater, like, what are the games that we really enjoy? And this one popped to mind. So many great lines, so many great things. We can't do justice to all of it, but we found a passage. This particular passage, when I first played with Crofton, had Crofton in so many stitches listening to this, rant. So it's only fitting that Crofton performs it for you. He will play the role of Handsome Jack, and he's having a discussion with the player character. Crofton, whenever you're ready, shine your wonderful performance light on the masses.
Hey kiddo, Jack here, president of Hyperion. Let me explain how things work here. Vault Hunter shows up, Vault Hunter looks for the new vault, Vault Hunter gets killed. By me. Seeing the problem here? You're still alive. So you could just do me a favor and off yourself? That'd be great. Thanks, Pumpkin. So, how's your day been, buddy? We haven't really talked much since I left you for dead. Hey, you think you'll freeze to death out there? Nah, probably not. The bandits will get you first. My day? Oh, it's been pretty good. I just bought a pony made of diamonds because, you know, I'm rich. So, that's cool. Okay, bye.
That was a terrible horse braying. How do they do it?
Well, Beau, and chat room, our show is over, and we're going to have to run straight to the recording of another show. So, unfortunately, we can't take any questions, really.
YouTube.com/